Do you remember a while back when you never heard of BLM, Black Lives Matter? And then you never heard of Antifa. And then you never heard of critical race theory. And then all of a sudden you did. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, came these subjects, studies, out of nowhere, out of thin air. There they came, these ideas. Critical race theory, which was a re-evaluation, kind of a repositioning of history as to the position of slavery and how it, the 1619 Project, and how that worked. Okay. Nobody really knew what happened. It just was there all of a sudden. And there were classes and school overnight. And all of a sudden people said, wait a minute, what is this? Where did this come from? And it was like an avalanche. It's just similar to, as well, when all of a sudden people were talking about drag shows, drag queen shows at schools. All of a sudden. Just like all of a sudden there was talk about gender blocking and transmogrification of gender and hysterectomies and mastectomies and orchiectomies and penectomies and I mean, just overnight it just came out of nowhere. You just blinked and there it was. Well, there are two concepts I want you to think of and I want you to be aware of. And this is very important. Listen carefully in view of what's happening with Alvin Bragg, the Soros-funded practitioner of critical legal studies, which is a version of critical race theory. Critical legal studies works hand in hand with something called restorative justice. What does all this mean? What does this gobbledygook mean? Simple. When you were young and you grew up, you thought there were these things and these people called prosecutors. And prosecutors were charged with going after bad guys who did bad things to people, right? That's what you thought. That's what we were used to. You put them in jail. And you put these people in jail, and the worse of their crime was, the worse the penalty. The more draconian, the more penal, more carceral. Okay. A while back in the 70s and 80s, there were these schools of thought at various universities. And it starts off with a kind of a kernel of thought, a germ, an idea. These notions, these things called legal positivism. And others like, oh, that's great. Whatever. And then there was this idea that criminal laws are best. In fact, let me just do this. Let me just, I don't want to just make this stuff up. I want you to hear the great word, this critical legal theory. This is from Cornell Law School. Critical legal studies is a theory which states that the law is necessarily intertwined with social issues, particularly stating that the law has inherent social biases. Proponents of CLS believe that the law supports the interests of those who create the law. As such, CLS states that the law supports a power dynamic which favors the historically privileged and disadvantages the historically underprivileged. CLS finds that the wealthy and the powerful use the law as an instrument for oppression to maintain their place in hierarchy. Many in the CLS movement want to overturn the hierarchical structures of modern society, and they focus on the law as a tool in achieving this goal. What does this mean? Let them go. Let them go. We're not even going to address what they've done, what they've stolen, whom they've raped or murdered or bludgeoned or beaten. We're not interested in that. We're interested instead in something even more important. The hierarchical, the historical, the years and years of entrenched racism and whatever. This is what motivates. Listen carefully. This is why Alvin Bragg and others, part of this Soros-backed group, were looking at basically not prosecuting crimes. Not because they were actively promoting these criminals, not because they were actively supporting your victimization and the complete and total breakdown of all societal order. Oh, no, 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 no. This was a way of correcting these horrible, terrible, what is the word? These horrible, terrible, fiendishly unfair, historically racist and biased, entrenched forms of inequity, equity, inequality. And the way to correct this, the means by which, the means of propulsion to redirect this vector of change, the way of transmogrifying and reversing years and years of this horrible, inherent, endemic, systematic, almost this architecture of, do you hear what I'm saying? Is to basically let the bad guys go. Look the other way. Restorative justice, bring them back into society. And if you happen to be the victim of sexual assault, you will have to meet with your assailant. And if you don't, well, that's not good. Because then you will be in the position perhaps of maybe having those charges dismissed. Because after all, there's more to dealing with the problems that we have than merely throwing people in the pokey, in the hoosgow. There's no reason to continue with this. So when Alvin Bragg and others are put into office, paid for, in a sense, by George Soros, and you wonder, why are they doing this? Why is there this let these people go kind of a story? And I mean criminals. It's because of critical legal studies and this insane way of thinking. These are the attack of the crits, proponents, adherents, and advocates of this new lunatic way of either taking history and recreating it, remanufacturing it, rewriting it, revising it to comport and to comply with your particular worldview, and something else which is important, this idea that you are a victim when you are charged with a crime. When you break into a CVS or a Walgreens or a Sephora and you steal thousands of dollars, or a Chanel store, you throw a brick through a window, you rob somebody, beat somebody, bludgeon somebody, stab somebody, rape somebody, murder somebody, whatever. You are merely an instrument, a manifestation of years and years and years of this inherently unfair, and inequitable system, usually manifested and seen by virtue of law enforcement. And this seeks to address it by reversing it. Critical legal studies, crits. Just wait. Now, my friend, I ask you to like this. I know it's a terrible thing to like, but like and appreciate this video. Please subscribe to this channel. And whatever you do, I beg, beseech, and entreat and implore you to comment as you see fit.